largely glaze over the sexual side of the fandom. And while that might put some parents at ease, I realize I've left out a part of this fandom that is sometimes misunderstood. Now, many furries that engage in the more lewd interests that exist in this fandom often have to hide those interests because of the perceived stigma of being associated with these interests or kinks. To combat this, I decided to begin a series on these more after-dark topics in collaboration with real furries who have these interests or kinks to help demystify and hopefully destigmatize these interests a little bit. Because after all, you and me, baby, ain't nothing but mammals. Let's figure out how some do it for a series on this channel. So we asked the pup community to help us out with this one, and 19 of you good dogs responded to our survey, so thank you all so much for giving me a hand with this one. Of those who responded, 79% responded that they did identify as pups, so a few of you might have missed the mark on this one, and not fully understood why the survey was being asked, but that's okay. Now, from the group of the remaining 15, the vast majority of those that responded identified as strays, a term in the pup community referring to pups that do not necessarily run with the pack or belong to a handler. Not really sure what that means? Well, let's break down some of those terms. Within the pup community, many pups fall into determining groups dependent on how they identify in terms of more of a pack mentality. There are alphas, or like the head of the pack, betas, who are just below the alphas, and omegas, who are at the more bottom area of that, and might also be bottom. Not necessarily. Never mind. There's also handlers who own or handle the pack to some degree, I think. Did I get that right, pups? Zelda, really? Can you fuck off? Hello? Hey. And there's also strays that don't really associate with packs in the same way that the others do, but, may not have a handler or might just go to the beat of their own drum. If this sounds a bit familiar to wolf pack mentality, it is kind of by design. Some who engage in pup play enjoy having that hierarchical structure to help with the immersion and getting into the headspace of a pup. For those that don't care for more of that tiered construct, identifying as stray can allow them to just enjoy the headspace, maybe without the hierarchy. Now, hearing the term wolf pack, you might assume that the pup community is overwhelmingly male-oriented. From what we could glean from those who responded to our survey, there was a large number of cis male respondents, with about 40% identifying as cis male. However, we also saw that 33% identified as gender fluid or non-binary and 13% as transgender. In researching this video, it wasn't lost on me that many sites that had been recommended by our respondents as resources for the community did primarily feature images of men, specifically cis males. In fact, as someone that is considered dipping a paw or two into the community, I was initially pretty nervous that as a female, I might not be welcome to the community. However, after sitting down with two awesome pups in the community, I felt a little bit more at ease.
Well, my name is Alice, and, that's the main name that I go by. Most of the other names that I've been called are just pet names or nicknames, such like that, but Alice is what everybody calls me. As far as what got me into doing this video, it was talking with you, and after, seeing the reception to the last couple of Furries After Dark videos, it was a really wonderful opportunity, I felt, to actually give a little bit of positive press to the pup community, which is something that is always good in my opinion, so I really appreciate you doing this, for one, and for having me on here.
What's goody? It's your young Kabuki with that bottle of Hennessy, and I'm about to put it in my own views as I answer questions in this interview. Ooh, and with my fucking crew. Ooh.
Oh my god.
Yeah, I think trans pups are definitely a lot more common than one would think, because, the experience of being trans is a lot of making yourself into something that you're more happy with. So I've seen this with a lot of kinks that I'm interested in, just a general propensity among individuals with divergent gender identities to explore kinks that play more with the concept of identity, like pup play, for instance. Socially, it's interesting because things like the pup community and the kink community and the furry community, they can be very easy to be accepted in as a trans female or a trans male or however you identify and present yourself as. But, you know, like I kind of briefly mentioned earlier, it does objectively narrow the pool of individuals that you can have encounters with.
I honestly, like, have heard stories about, like, you know, some of the people that attend MIR, they see females and they're just kind of like saying, you know, I thought this was a men's only event. Why is there a female here? You know what I mean? And I just feel like that's just wrong. Personally, if you are into this kind of stuff, you're into pup and gear kind of stuff, like rubber, leather, all that. If you got that interest and that, you know, similar mindsets with other people, I feel like anyone should be able to go to these events regardless of gender, you know, race, creed, all of that shit. Like, it's 2019, bro. Let people do their thing.
I was also very curious about how large a part of pup was pup gear, and from the respondents of the survey, it does seem to be a very large part of the community, with over 80% saying that they owned gear, and 20% saying that they didn't, but would like to, and 0% saying that they had no interest at all. So I guess it's a pretty big part. Gear in the community can come in many forms: collars, hoods, leashes, paw mitts, harnesses, and rubber tails are just a few. While it may seem like being a member of the community requires owning a pup hood, some respondents mentioned that, not unlike the furry community, it isn't necessarily the case. In fact, a few strongly recommended waiting to invest in a full hood until a newer pup felt like it was something that they would need for immersion or even want. And with many hoods carrying a hefty tag of $100 or more, it's very easy to see why. Depending on materials, a neoprene or leather hood can set a new pup back hundreds of dollars. However, Alice was kind enough to share an option that might be a great alternative for newer pups with tighter wallets.
The absolute lowest, minimum thing I can recommend is a company called Rough Stuff, WRUFF Stuff. They make wonderful variety of pup hoods and pet play hoods in general. They make kitten hoods and fox hoods, different breeds of pups, and they actually offer a very basic starter pup set, very similar to the hood that I'm wearing now. It's just this top piece and a head with some ears, on the straps. And it can introduce somebody to what wearing a hood is like, how this can, looking out, because this is in your field of vision, looking out and seeing a muzzle and getting kind of into the headspace, having your ears scratched behind, stuff like that. It stimulates both your tactile sensations and lets interactions with others be a little bit more interesting. And the wonderful thing about Rough Stuff, and this isn't sponsored, by the way, I just am a very happy pup that something like this exists for new pups to get into the community, because if you end up liking pup play, you can send this basic hood back and get your full credit towards a nicer hood of a more personalized or higher quality hood. Or if you don't like it, you can send it back and get a partial refund.
Oh, so they almost have like a try it before you buy it option.
Basically, almost. You're just paying for, if you end up not liking it, you're just paying a small deposit and shipping.
While it also may seem like the quintessential pup hood has a standard look across the community, we also discovered that pup hoods can come in many different styles, not unlike fursuits. Whether you opt for a more familiar black neoprene with a singular color or no other colors, or go the more custom route, it does very much seem that these hoods can be as unique and customizable as some of the fursuits we see in the furry community and the people that wear them.
And so this is what a lot of pups would call a show hood. So this isn't something that would be involved in any sort of bodily fluid exchange or any sort of play where it could get damaged, vanilla or otherwise. This is a neoprene hood, which it's a little hard to see in the current lighting situation. But this one is, as you can probably tell, considering this is leather and this is neoprene kind of flopping around all over the place, this is a lot lighter, a lot easier to wear, and just a lot more comfortable. And this is for, better for long-term wear and, extended play.
So I guess it's kind of it was just kind of based off what I do, and I also kind of took it at a cultural aspect. The reason why I call myself kabuki is, in Japan, the art of kabuki is basically it's just, your old school OG Japanese soap was I basically wanted to like kind of take a little bit of that culture and just kind of incorporate it with this. I mean, because I thought it'd be dope to be able to do that since I'm Japanese myself. Why not just kind of like, just have some fun with it. I'm also a rapper, singer, and dancer, so, I'm all about that entertainment. And, kabuki was a form of entertainment, put two and two together and you get me. And the reason why I kind of designed for my hood is because I wanted to get that kabuki mask aesthetic. So that's kind of why I went with this design, so you already know how it is. What's good?
So what draws people to the pup community? Well, here's what some members of the community had to say.
I guess the first question I had was, when did you first discover the pup community and what specifically drew you in?
It was probably around 2011, 2012, thereabouts. It was probably shortly after I joined Fur Affinity, I would always scroll through and see fursuit pictures, and intermixed the fursuit pictures, you'd see some people posting their pup get-ups on Fur Affinity. And I had gotten attracted and quite fond to the aesthetic of, different kinds of pup hoods, and I always found it very impressive when I'd see a pup with the whole get-up, and I just loved the aesthetic. And and also during that time period, I had a significant other at the time who was very much more into the BDSM kink side of things and was very much into pup play herself. And she kind of taught me a lot of what I know as far as acting like a pup and, the etiquette of interacting in the community and such like that. And I'm very grateful to have had her. And like I said, all this happened around 2011, 2012, so about 6-7 years ago at this point. More probably, because I can't do math right now.
No, it's all right.
When did you first discover the pup community and what specifically drew you in?
Shoot, man, interesting friends, if you know what I mean. And it's kind of like I got introduced. It's like I was at a party one time and there was like a whole bunch of pups. And I kind of thought that this shit was cool, low key. Like I always thought that the whole pup hoods were all cool and shit. And I just was like, yo, I want to be this kind of like feels like it's right for me. And honestly, what kind of brings me into it is like space. Definitely the headspace is weird, and I like having my face covered, so it's like I'm low key and on. But that's just me. That's just a personal thing with me.
That's fair enough. So you kind of got into it through friends then, in a way.
Yeah, pretty much.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, it's really interesting to hear because I feel like with pup, does it tend to be like a lot of BDSM enthusiasts that tend to like make the first steps there, or can some people come into that as their first BDSM?
It's definitely a crossover thing, 100%. There are a lot of aspects of pup play that are inherently kind of BDSM inspired, like the aesthetic. For instance, I'm wearing a leather hood with rivets and all that such. I have a black neoprene hood back there. You'll see a lot of pups wearing harnesses or, neoprene zentais or latex bodysuits and such like that. So there's definitely a little bit of kink crossover, but I would say the pup community in isolation has an equal balance thereabouts of, naughty pups, we shall say, for lack of a better term, the people who do more sexually explicit things in the bedroom, and people who are, more vanilla pups who escape more into a headspace. And there's definitely some gray areas, and it's more of a spectrum than anything. But, as with a lot of things, especially with kink, it definitely comes down to the individual.
Okay. And you did mention headspace. Another question I definitely had was, how often do you get into that pup mind space or the headspace on a daily or weekly basis?
So I guess one aspect of the pup community that a lot of people talk about is the mindset of being a pup, or, kind of getting into that headspace of being a pup around other pups or maybe on your own time. So how often do you get into this pup mindset on a daily basis or even on a weekly basis?
I mean, I gotta be a normie for like most of my because that's just, going to school and all that shit. It's kind of like I keep this shit like really low. Not that I'm ashamed of it, it's just kind of like, this is kind of my personal business and this is what I like to do on my time. I don't go around my damn house wearing this hood But sometimes, you know, I just feel like getting into the headspace, so I just kind of like put it on whenever I feel like I want to be a goofy ass pup, you know.
For me, it's something that pup space is something that is brought out much more in interpersonal interactions. So with my partner or with somebody that I have a close relationship with, or any sort of thing like that. Being open and polyamorous, I've had, you know, many people take my leash, so to speak, and there's a lot of trust involved in that. And as far as headspace in general involved, it's something that's very well ingrained in my personality. You know, I wear this collar just about every day, and it's kind of a security thing for me. You know, it gives me a little bit of purpose when I think of my role as a pup, and, you know, apply it to different facets of my life. And it's always something that I can kind of go back and escape to. It's something that, at the end of the day, is a little bit simple and a little bit relaxing.
All that we had, I'm rolling like water in the sea. The memories crashing into me, so close to the edge of something so worth it. You have the world right at your feet. It almost is all we'll ever be.
From both Alice and Kabuki to help you stay safe and have fun.
Are there any critical do's and don'ts around new pups and older pups that they probably should be familiar with, or may just need a gentle reminding of?
Well, I would say do be respectful of boundaries. You know, like even at things like moshes or fur cons or such like that, where there are a lot of people who are in a mild form of pup space anyway, just because they're in an environment that can encourage that. Always be mindful of your boundaries if somebody is participating or not, things like that. Like, if you have to break from speaking in something other than barks to actually gauge where the person you're interacting with is feeling, and if you can express affection in a pup-like way towards them, or whatever you want to do, you have to get explicit consent for that, of course. And don'ts, I would say the biggest don't for a new pup and old pup alike is don't tug a pup's collar without consent. This is a very powerful gesture for a pup, and not only can it be disrespectful to a stray who has not given you consent, it can be disrespectful to somebody like me, who you may see the tag and assume it's just a name, and you didn't see my owner's name on the back. And on top of those two things, you could also damage a collar, like I mentioned with this cloth collar earlier.
No, I can definitely see how that could be very upsetting, because that is very intrinsically linked to your identity, at least, it seems, both in and out of pup space, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I can see how that.
And I think that's just, you know, not everybody is a lifestyler. Not everybody wears a collar every day. This is just my way of expressing myself through this interest personally.
Okay.
There's no right or wrong way to do this. I would like to, you know, I'm not trying to be Pup Moses with the tablets of what a pup should be. That's not my job. I'm just a dog who's trying to talk about what all this is, you know?
Oh, definitely. And honestly, I very much appreciate you walking me through some of this, because it is very, very confusing, because at least as someone who has known a couple of different pups, the information gets very, very confusing, especially from different perspectives, and I've largely only had one, so it's really nice to have a different one that is very diametrically different from some of the other perspectives I've gotten. I might actually, a few people are going to be submitting potentially videos, so I might also have a couple contrasting ones to, you know, have you here as well when, you know, we do put this video up, but it's definitely nice to have more than one voice in the room for once.
I'm happy to help.
Yeah, for sure. So I guess one other question that I am going to try to make a part of every interview that I ask from now on is, what are some great ways to stay safe while having fun and engaging in pup play that you would highly recommend to both a newcomer and maybe someone returning?
I would say know your physical limits when it comes to gear and play. Especially with pup play, there's a lot of romping around on all fours. If you have bad knees, invest in knee pads, or if you just can't romp around on all fours, don't feel like that makes you any less of a pup. It just means you have to express yourself in different scenarios.
Okay.
And, being safe physically is something that I can't preach enough as far as any kink is concerned. Like, obviously things like hygiene and such, washing your gear, making sure everything is sanitized. But, like, if you're spending a lot of time down on your knees or on all fours, you're going to eventually put strain on your back and your joints because your body is not used to being in that place. And, just little things like not wearing your collar too tight, establishing safe words and a system of gauging where your headspaces are at with your partner should something not feel right during a scene or encounter. It's just a lot of little things that add up as to self-preservation and making sure that both parties involved, or all parties involved, depending on if you're doing this alone or with others, have a good time and are safe.
Yeah, for sure. That makes complete sense. And as someone that's definitely found this community interesting but hasn't dipped their feet in yet, it's really good to know that as well.
And this, just one more thing to add to staying safe, especially if you plan on long-term play, especially if you are a fan of wearing lots of gear, please drink lots of water.
Yes. Oh my god, the crusade to get fursuiters to drink water when they just want to drink beer. I see it also extends to others.
What are some great ways to stay safe while having fun when engaging in pup play?
Definitely, consent is always good because, we ain't trying to be no Bill Cosby up in here, Oh, shit, I'm sorry. I caught myself off guard with that.
It's okay.
Two, know your limits because, sometimes people are into, like, extreme stuff in the pup community, and there ain't nothing wrong with that. They just trying to do their freaky thing, they just trying to be kinky with it, and, but, just know your limits because if you push yourself too much, you'll go to the ER and then you're gonna have to explain to the doctor why the hell you in the ER. That may or may not involve explaining the kinky, freaky shit that you was doing that got you hurt. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, definitely.
And three, wear a condom. Just because you a pup doesn't mean you can't get the claps, if you know what I'm saying.
This video was a blast to make, and I hope you all learned a little something and enjoyed watching it as much as I had fun making it. Until the next video, bye!